And we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. Today on the show, we have Chris Reeder returning to the show. He is our very first repeat guest. We are so happy to have him. And we're talking about overlanding, because what the heck is that? And why should we care? Chris, thanks for being on the show again, man.
Thanks for having me back.
We had a lot of good feedback from the first show that we did, even with all the cursing and swearing that is not to be avoided, but probably is not going to come out this time because we're not talking about Army stuff.
We might brush on it.
Well, there's going to be some Army stuff, I guess, when we get into the backstory.
Yeah.
So Chris is the owner of Veteran Welding, which is situated between High River and Okotoks in a place called Alderside, that the locals are all familiar with. How do we find it? Veteran Welding. What's a good landmark if we wanted to come by and
if you're
say
coming,
hi, hey?
If you're coming, well, I guess it doesn't matter if you're going north or south on Highway 2A there. As soon as you see factory outlet trailers, if you're heading south, turn left. If you're heading north, turn right onto that little side road there, and we're building the first building on the right, bay number 1.
Right across from factory outlet trailers.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. And so you've got a contract recently with somebody to build overlanding vehicles. Is that right?
Close. We had a couple customers talk to us about it and one thing and the other, and we were chin-wagging back and forth. And they're like, oh, we want you to do this, and we want you to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And then when it came time to actually do it and pull the trigger on it, it's just like, well, and it just kind of dwindled off. And then about 3-4 months later, somebody else would come in and be like, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. What can you do for us? And then we go through the whole process again. And then once again, they get down to the point where it's like, okay, time to start paying for stuff and that. And then they'd be like, well, and then back off. And so my wife and I were going back and forth, and we kept talking about how we would love to have one of these trailers for ourselves. And we're talking about everything from, chassis design to the way the kitchenette would be laid out, to the way the interior would be laid out, like the whole 9 yards. And so we ended up building this trailer in our minds. And then, one day it was just like, well, let's just put it onto paper. And then things just kept snowballing. And then we had another opportunity to do work with a rooftop tent company out of Calgary. And I'm not going to mention any names, but it was like trying to pull teeth. And we, once again, we designed the whole chassis, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, okay, what do you guys think of this? Let's, move forward onto the actual box design. Because essentially what it is it's just a chassis with aluminum box on it.
Just in case we're losing anybody, we should probably start with what is overlanding.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My bad. So overlanding is what we did in the military as recce. It's living off of a vehicle.
And recce, for those who don't know, is reconnaissance. So I'm going to keep doing that when we're using jargon. I'm going to make it so it's accessible for everybody. So reconnaissance, which is sneak and peek.
Exactly, yeah. So when I was in the Army for 10 years with the Royal Canadian Dragoons, that's all I did was armored reconnaissance. So essentially what it is you're doing sneak and peek from a vehicle. And we would have to have that vehicle loaded out with food, water, beans and bullets.
Man,
the whole
I should have gone armored.
Oh yeah, it's a lot easier on your knees. But anyway, we do that for 72 hours at a minimum. And then when we were in Afghanistan, it was the same thing, but it was weeks at a time. And so,
yeah, just a bit further away from me. There you go.
There we go. So when we were in Afghanistan, it was the same thing, but weeks at a time. And at that time, it was just doing my job. It wasn't overlanding or anything cool like that. Then when I got out here, there's these guys driving around with rooftop tents and one thing and the other, and it's like, well, why don't you just camp on the ground? No clue what overlanding was. And then once I started Veteran Welding, that's when it started to snowball, where people are like, oh, overlanding is this, overlanding that is that. And it's just like, so you guys willingly live out of your vehicle
on purpose
and
spend a lot of money to do it.
Yeah. To replicate what I was doing in the military, but no guns or no fun Army stuff like that. And they're like, oh yeah, it's great because we go out and we do this, and there's like little, for lack of a better term, clubs. And there's one here in town where it's fairly large, And they'll sit there in that, and they'll go out in the wintertime and all this other stuff, and they head out to the BC Overland Rally. There's another huge rally just south of the border that they go to, and it's a huge thing. Like it's massive. But there's two.
So is it like a old style wagon train, like going across the prairies with a covered wagon, only now with style?
Pretty close, yeah.
What about accessibility though? Like the first thing that comes to me is like where? Like where do you have a tract of land that will allow a full size vehicle or a trailer to go overland?
Well, that's the thing. They're not designed to be full size trailers.
Okay.
So
like what's pulling them then? A quad?
No. Jeep.
A Jeep.
Jeep or quarter ton truck.
Okay.
So that's what they're designed for. Because then you can go on to a lot of the Jeep trails and one thing and the other like that. You can go out to Whitebriss, Crow's Nest Pass area, all this other stuff. Or even if you're just going from like here to Jasper or something like that.
Kind of the perfect hunting trailer, really.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what we're building, and we're going to do all that. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull all of the military experience that I have and pour into it, and come with bring to the market a whole bunch of new products, new ideas, completely different way of looking at it at an affordable price. Because some of these trailers, like there's one company out of New Zealand who just top of the line overlanded trailers, the whole 9 yards. But you're looking at like 50, 60K for this trailer. And it's like, well, who the hell's going to afford that? And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have other guys who are like, oh yeah, I can build overlanded trailers, or I can build, and you're looking at it and you're just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's well built. And that's one thing.
That was said with sarcasm, folks.
Oh yeah, a lot of it. And because one thing that pisses me off, and it's one of our core values at Veteran Welding, is if you're going to do something right. Do it to the best of your ability, and give the customer a product that they'll never have to come back for. Because then, even though you're not getting a repeat customer, you have somebody sitting there spreading all this good information about you, saying, hey, this is what I wanted, or this is what I thought I wanted. He educated me on this, and this. And then he gave me this, which is just like way over and above what I thought I was going to get for an affordable price.
So what sort of price range are you trying to stay within? Like around 30?
Ballpark.
Yeah.
But the thing is like a lot of guys in this field are pretty handy. So some of the guys in the local club, it's just a angle iron frame with a Princess Auto axle underneath it, and then just plywood. But then they have to go out and get the chassis stamped and certified that it's safe and one thing the other like that. So what we're doing is when the name of the trailer is Kluane. So Kluane, my wife was from the Yukon, and you have the Kluane mountain range, and that's where I think it's Mount Johnson or something like that. It's the highest peak in North America. That's where it is. It's in Kluane National Park.
Mount Logan.
Logan, that's it, yeah. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to sell it in three stages. So one is a complete chassis. It's just the chassis, powder coated, wired, stamped, and certified, the whole 9 yards. This way guys can sit there and just build off of that. Level 2 is going to be the chassis and just your basic aluminum box. That's it. And then you can, build off of from there. And then level 3 will be the chassis, the box, kitchenette on one side, like a utility cupboard on the other side, and then go from there.
Now, being it's going to be pulled by a Jeep or a quarter-ton truck, weight is going to be the biggest challenge, I'm imagining. Because if you're going to have all these storage boxes, so it's aluminum, or is it? Can you do aluminum chassis, or does it have to be a steel chassis?
Well, that's just it. What I want to do is I want to keep, because you got to remember it's going off road. All right. So you want to keep your center of gravity as low as possible. So the chassis is going to be steel. All right. Everything's going to be interlinked together, the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to spill the beans on everything, on how we're building it here, because we are literally going from concept to completion for the sportsman show there at the end of next month.
Exciting.
So yeah. We just sent the drawings off to the engineer. We should get them back in a couple days. But the thing is you want to keep your center of gravity as low as possible so it doesn't roll. Now, being it's so small to begin with, it's going to be hard. But the chassis is aluminum, or the chassis is steel. Everything else above that is aluminum. On the level 3, so where you get everything, it's going to come with water tank, like a fresh and gray water tank, a section for batteries. Your spare tire is going to be mounted up front, the whole 9 yards. But that's going to be mounted in front of the axles, below or in the frame. So once again, it's just keeping all your weight super, super low.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So how many clubs are around? Like, and how long are these treks? Is there Overlanding Festival?
Well, yeah, like there's like I said, there's the BC Overland Rally, and then there's the one. I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but I can't for some reason right now. It's just south of the border. But the thing is, though, it's not like it's not okay. It's not like going out with your quad, all right, and you're just on the quad trail. That's it. It's literally wherever you want to go. Like there's one guy, he went out to Nova Scotia in his overland rig, which was his Jeep, but he had sat there, pulled his rear seats out, the whole 9 yards, and did it all out of his Jeep. So you could sit there, you can, like I said, go from here to Winnipeg, here to Montana, whatever, or you can go up Forestry Trunk Road 40, go all the way up to Nordic.
There's so many awesome places on Forestry Trunk Road.
Oh yeah.
Like that's for this season coming up. I want to get a V-Strom 650 motorcycle.
Yeah, you were saying that. I remember.
And that's the trip I want to do, Coleman to Hinton.
Yeah.
Now there's more than that to Forestry Trunk Road, but that's the stretch I want to hit. There's 1,000 phenomenal places.
Oh yeah.
In between that are just incredible that you can't see from the tourist spots, that you can't see from the highway, and blow your mind if you saw some of these mountain ranges and canyons, and it's really incredible. But again, access is the big thing. Like at the Hummingbird, which is off of Forestry Trunk Road, just next to Ram River Falls. Yeah. So about an hour south of Nordegg, and there's no on-highway vehicles allowed. So like that's it. It's got to be off-road or nothing, just for minimum impact. But there's a lot of restrictions, and now the NDP government is creating more and more restrictions to getting out into the wildlands.
Yeah, which blows my mind, because this is going to get a little political, but I don't understand why they want to sit there and stop people from doing this. A good example, and this is probably the only time I'll say this, is Ontario. They have the OFSA, Ontario Federations of Snowmobile Clubs, or something like that. I forget what the acronym is, but that's what it is. It's all the Skidoo clubs, all right? And in the summertime, they go over to ATV clubs. And what they do is you sit there, you pay a trail fee for, I think it's like $250, and you get access to the whole province. The whole freaking province. And the trails are groomed and maintained. There's always somebody on it. And if not, like let's say something happens and you break down somewhere in your middle of nowhere, like up in Timmins, Ontario, just for conversation's sake, okay? Even though you broke down, as long as you told somebody, hey, this is where I was going, there's a club within 50 kilometers that'll sit there, spool up, which is part of like a quick react. I'll use that term loosely, quick reaction force, that'll sit there, come out and help you. A perfect example is the one that helped me just outside of Minden, Ontario. When I was stationed in Pett, I was going from Pett to...
That's Petawawa, everybody.
Yeah, Petawawa, sorry. I was going from CFB Petawawa to the Halliburton Forest just as a skidoo trip. And on the way there, hit a snowstorm, lost control of the back end of the snowmobile, and she rolled, launched me. I just fell on a snowbank and it was fine. But it just for some reason wouldn't start. Same thing. I told somebody where I was going, and within 4 hours, they sat there, spooled up the Skidoo Club, and had somebody out to find me. Like, if they sit there and properly structure it, there is no reason why they need to close public land. None whatsoever. Because they sit there, and even in some parts of Ontario now, they're having Jeep specific trails and quad specific trails and so on and so forth like that. And it's the exact same structure. You sit there, you pay a fee, you become part of a club, and the trails are maintained, everything else like that, and you go from there. And especially out here where we get so many forest fires, why would you sit there and not want that? Now, The reason I say that is because if you sit there and you have these people who are going out, being stewards of the environment, taking care of everything, making sure everything's clean and well kept, one thing and the other, forest fire spools up in a remote area. Well, now instead of having to sit there and cut trail through the bush with chainsaws and one thing and the other, or drop guys in by helicopter, hey, we got these trails here. Guess what? Boom, away they go. It just makes sense. But they're not thinking about it. And that's the other thing with overlanding.
Well, we're getting more and more domesticated every year, and people, they think that the wild is what they can see from the highway. You know, they don't understand just how enormous our country is.
Oh, yeah.
And how much wild is out there. And there's, they don't understand truly exploring backcountry and out back.
Exactly.
But it's such a joy.
And that's just it. Like if you sit there with like the absolute basic overlanding rig, okay? And I'm using that term very broadly. I'm not talking about Kluwani specifically, which is the trailer we're coming out with. I'm talking where you just outfit the back of your Jeep with the back of your Jeep or the back of your pickup truck with food, water, and enough supplies to last you 72 hours, okay? And a tent. Once you sit there and you get out and you start experiencing the wild, like, well, you know this obviously, being a Patricia, but it becomes a drug. It really does, because then it's just like, well, okay, so I had to like really work hard to get to this point here, but now I can see all this, and there's nobody around for miles. But then you can start seeing sheep and elk. Depending where you go, caribou and moose and
acting a lot differently than they do in a national park.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, like they're not going to sit there and look at you and be like, well, what the heck's this guy doing here? Like they'll sit there and they'll realize, okay, you're a human, obviously, but they're not going to be afraid of you. They're not, but then again, they're not going to come up and.
Well, it depends if it's hunting season. They seem to know the seasons better than we do, and which where the borders are for the wildlife management units. They know the hunting regs better than the fish cops, I think.
Exactly, yeah. But that's just it, and it's like anything else. Like Cameron Haynes said it best. Okay, he's a world-class bow hunter out of the States. Eugene, Oregon, I think is where he's out of. He's like, you can go hunting. This isn't going to be an exact quote, sorry. But you can go hunting for a weekend, but you're not becoming a predator in the environment. Well, if you're going out hunting for like a week at a time and you're living in that environment, or 2 weeks, let's say, after like the 3 or 4 days, you become the apex predator in that environment. So
you actually become part of the ecosystem as opposed to being a visitor.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And people, most people have never had that experience unless they've done serious backcountry and nowhere near the trails.
Exactly. And like, I'm not saying like, you have to take these trailers way out into the bush. I'm just saying they give you the opportunity to go places comfortably that you just can't do.
Is there any guides and outfitters for overlanding where somebody can just go in, pay their fee instead of buying the trailer themselves? They rent a trailer, and if they don't know where to go, the guide takes them out and that sort of thing. Yeah,
I'm gonna say it's Moose Trail Overlanding out of Canmore.
Okay.
I'll double check after the show to make sure I got it right, and then you can, if you want, put their name of the thing. But what they do is they have a Ford 1-ton van. It's 4-wheel drive, the whole 9 yards, and they have specific spots. Like one spot, like you'll go out and it's like a remote hot spring, and you go out there and they have like a beautiful 3-course meal put on, the whole 9 yards. Actually, he was a Royal.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's a member of the Royal Canadian Regiment.
Yeah, another infantry regiment. But Mike is the guy that I talked to last year, and the guy was just freaking awesome. But anyway, they have that, and then there's Yama Nomad. They're doing something similar but different. So what they're doing is they're outfitting the Mercedes Sprinter vans into an overlanding unit.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, I'm actually helping them out right now, doing side steps, roof racks, tire carriers, everything else like that. And but they only allow you to rent the vans for a week at a time, which it's It's a little expensive. Well, I think it might be a little bit expensive. I haven't talked price with him yet on what he's going to charge for it. But the thing is it goes back to that. The longer you're out there, the more, not only the more do you enjoy it, but the more you experience.
Well, it's like they say, if it flies or floats, it's cheaper to rent it.
Exactly.
So it might seem expensive. It's like, well, or you can leave it sitting in your backyard after you spent $40,000 on it and use it twice.
Exactly.
And
that's the other thing too, is like with a trailer, you can sit there and you don't need to have a big 1-ton dually diesel pickup truck. You really don't. Like you could pull it with your little Focus that you got and just go from like place to place, campground to campground to campground, and be extremely comfortable.
That's cool.
Like it's
that's our challenge. We have in the backyard here, we have a 28-foot trailer, 7,200 pounds. And the struggle is, well, if I get a truck that's new enough, and like I just got an old beater that's working right now, but I'm at least $30,000.
Oh yeah,
for a truck that isn't a daily driver. It's just to haul the trailer. That's it.
Yeah, and
that's pricey. So we're probably going to downsize the trailer, but it's also very comfortable.
Exactly. Well, and that's just it too. Like the rooftop tent set, because that's what it is. Like you have your cube and everything else like that, and then a rooftop tent goes on top of the trailer. They have memory foam in them now and everything else like that, and like they are comfy, like super. I personally love them. Absolutely love them. So
do you have any of this on your website about the overlanding trailers, or is there a resource that people can go to check this out?
We are right now, the best place to find out about our overlanding trailers is our Instagram and Facebook pages. Once the trailer is done.
Is that under Veteran Welding?
Yes, it's all under Veteran Welding.
Okay.
Once it's done, then we're going to sit there and then we're going to put it all on the website and go from there. But we want to do it properly. We want to have some good action shots of it and one thing and the other like that, set up, tore down, the whole 9 yards.
Be interesting. Have you been looking at any joint venture marketing ideas, like one of the hunting outfitters like Sitka or Kuyu, guys that have the high-end hunting clothing?
Not yet, but that's something once it's done, I want to do. I want to go up to him and be like, hey, listen, this is what we got. You can sit there and it's a full-on base camp. But for that there, we're going to have to do some serious tweaking, because I don't want to sit there and be like, this is something you can use.
Now, I understand not everybody that does overlanding has anything to do with hunting.
No.
Not at all. But for that segment that would be interested in that for hunting, a lot of companies have proprietary camouflage patterns, like ASAT. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But if you're to do a partnership with that, they would probably, because it's such a cool unit and such a sort of a neat looking thing, say, hey, how about we do a wrap on this in your proprietary cam pattern, but get them to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. But the thing is, though, is like I was saying, is I don't want to bring it to them unless it's something that's specifically geared for them. So the company that's going to be doing all of our imagery stuff for our YouTube channel and everything else like that, Dunning Imagery, they're also shooting a outdoors channel or an outdoors show for Discovery Canada that's going to be airing next year. And we were talking back and forth, one thing and the other, and we were in talks of them having one of the trailers for the season, so they can sit there, take it out, use it, one thing and the other like that, and then give us feedback where it's just like, okay, I loved this, this, and this. This needs to change. Do not change this. This was so then when we go to Kuyu or whoever and say, hey man, listen, this is what we got. Or even if we go to like outfitters, it's something where it's just like, okay, you know what? There's Kluani, the three stages of Kluani. And then there's like, the outfitter version where you can live off of it for like a week or longer if need be. And it's a complete base camp. That's what I want it to be. But I like everything else that we do, I don't want to even dip my toe in the water until it's just like, okay, you know what? Everything else is running perfectly fine. This is the target now. Let's move on.
So cool. So cool. Man, make sure I'm on the board of directors for this.
We'll do.
There you go. Chris Reeder, thank you for being on the show today, talking about overlanding and building of overlanding vehicles. For any of your welding needs, custom welding, go to Veteran Welding. It's in between Okotoks and Alderside for your custom welding jobs. I've seen the work myself, and it is spectacular. Not just the design, but the actual quality of the welding is exceptional. And what is your website address?
Website is veteranwelding.ca, and all of our contact information is on there.
Now that's singular. Veteran, not veterans.
Yes.
Veteran.
Yes.
Veteranwelding.ca.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris Reeder, thanks, brother, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me again.
I appreciate it.
Talk to you later.